The CEO's eyes nearly popped from their sockets as I slid the $50 million check across his gleaming mahogany desk. His voice cracked, barely a whisper. "You're selling us the whole property. The ranch, the resort, all of it?" I leaned back, the weight of 3 years lifting, and flashed a grin that might have been too smug. "Every last acre," I said. "The same resort your HOA built illegally on my land." His face paled to the hue of the Idaho snow outside. "They knew I had them cornered." "How did you?" the CEO began, but I raised a hand to stop him. "Let me tell you how your precious Silver Pines Homeowners Association built a luxury ski resort on my family's ranch without permission. And why, instead of demolishing it as the court ordered, I'm making you pay millions to keep it." The room fell silent, their pulses almost audible. "Sometimes," I continued, "when people try to steal what's yours, you don't fight dirty. You turn their greed into your victory." The CEO's trembling hand reached for his pen. "That's how I, William Hayes, a rancher who never cleared $60,000 a year, became a multimillionaire overnight. But to understand this triumph, we need to rewind 3 years, when I was fighting to save my family's ranch from foreclosure. I'm William Hayes, a third-generation cattle rancher in Silver Valley, Idaho's rugged mountains. At 42, my hands were calloused from decades of toil, my face etched by sun and wind. My resolve burned as fiercely as my grandfather's when he claimed this land. Hayes Haven, my 500-acre ranch, was a slice of heaven, rolling hills, thick forests, and a pristine stream winding through it. My grandfather built it from scratch during the Great Depression. My father expanded it in better times. I inherited it a decade ago when Dad died of a heart attack. But trouble arrived with Silver Pines, a flashy gated community built in 2018 by a Seattle developer on land bordering my ranch's north side. It was a playground for wealthy seasonal residents, executives and retirees who flocked for ski season or summer, leaving their million-dollar homes empty otherwise. Their HOA, run by a 7-person board, controlled everything from paint shades to lawn height. These weren't Idaho locals. They were outsiders with deep pockets and deeper egos. The HOA's ringleader was Victoria Langston, a former tech mogul from San Francisco who'd cashed out big. Her platinum hair was always perfect, her designer outfits absurd for rural life, and her smile never reached her icy eyes. She'd been pressuring me for years to sell parts of my ranch. Then there was Edward Ramsey, the HOA treasurer, a Wall Street type with crisp khakis and a sneer that pegged me as beneath him. My only ally on their board was Eleanor Ellie Watson, a retired schoolteacher who lived in Silver Pines full-time. She'd inherited wealth but kept her warmth, always bringing pies to meetings and treating me like a neighbor, not a pest. On my side, I had Ben Carter, my 65-year-old ranch manager, who'd worked for my family since he was a teenager. Tough, wise, and loyal, he was the uncle I never had. My daughter Sophie, 18 and college-bound for agricultural science, was my heart. She loved the ranch as fiercely as I did. Her mother, my wife Clara, died of cancer 5 years earlier, leaving us to hold Hayes Haven together. Spring 2021 brought the storm. The ranch was hemorrhaging money. Bad weather, soaring costs, and low beef prices had us on the brink. The bank loomed, demanding $150,000 in mortgage payments or they'd foreclose. I hid my fear from Sophie. One April morning, Ben and I were checking fences when we spotted orange survey stakes stamped SP Development across 50 acres of my land. "What the hell?" Ben muttered, scratching his beard. Before I could respond, construction rigs, a bulldozer, excavator, and dump truck rumbled up the dirt road. We flagged them down. The foreman, Mike, looked irritated. "This is the Silver Pines Resort expansion," he said, flashing plans for a building on my property. "We've got permits." I planted myself in front of the bulldozer. "This is Hayes Haven. I'm William Hayes, the owner. You're not digging until this is sorted." Mike made calls, and soon a sleek SUV rolled up. Victoria stepped out, her heels sinking into the dirt, her smile plastic. "William, there's a misunderstanding," she said. This land was legally bought by Silver Pines 3 months ago from the bank. My gut twisted. I never sold anything, I snapped, scanning her documents. They looked real, lot numbers, bank seals, but I hadn't been notified of any auction. The bank foreclosed on this parcel, she said smoothly. Not our fault you missed the notices. Ben bristled, but Victoria pressed on. Construction starts today on the Silver Pines ski resort. It'll bring jobs. You should be grateful. Grateful? I nearly lunged. She was after my whole ranch, planning to choke it out. You'll never get away with this, I growled. Her smile vanished. We already have. That night, I pored over maps with Sophie. The stakes covered 75 acres, including our irrigation creek. Can they do this? She asked, voice tight. Not legally, I said, but doubt not. The next morning, I met John Mercer, our family's lawyer, in his small office. He frowned at Victoria's papers. The boundaries don't match. We'll file an injunction, but Silver Pines has corporate lawyers and deep pockets. As I left, Ben called, frantic. They're bulldozing, William. Through the fence. I sped back to find 2 acres of ancient pines flattened, Edward smirking as he oversaw the destruction. File what you want, he taunted. We'll have foundations poured before a judge blinks. Then Sophie texted. The creek was muddy, choked with silt, poisoning our cattle's water. That night, Ben brought beers to my porch, where floodlights glowed from the construction site. Folks in town are pissed, he said. Silver Pines has been bullying everyone. I gripped my bottle. We're not losing this ranch. Dawn brought chaos. Cattle stampeded, spooked by construction. 3 heifers strayed onto the site, 1 inches from an excavator. I sprinted, shouting, nearly crushed until Ellie yanked me back. Are you insane? She gasped. She'd halted the machines, saving my herd. Why help? I asked, wary. Her face tightened. I was outvoted by Victoria and Edward. This isn't just a resort. Be careful. She fled before explaining. John called. Our injunction was denied by a Judge Cozy with Silver Pines, but he had a lead. Our creek housed protected fish. If we proved environmental damage, we could stop them. Sophie and I documented the silt, dead wildlife, and sent samples for testing. Meanwhile, the site grew. Not just a lodge, but a sprawling complex. On day 5, a hillside collapsed, nearly burying a bulldozer. Inspector Rodriguez ordered a work stoppage, citing violations. Hope surged until Victoria arrived with a slick lawyer. 2 hours later, Rodriguez lifted the order, claiming Silver Pines had clearances. Her shiny new car screamed bribe. That night, Ellie appeared at my door, nervous. The resort's Phase 1, she whispered, handing me a USB drive. Phase 2 is rezoning for commercial use. Phase 3 is eminent domain to seize your ranch. She'd gathered emails proving bribes to officials, including the judge. They did this in Oregon, she said. It's wrong. Sophie and I scoured the drive, finding plans to erase our ranch for a commercial hub. At 2 a.m., Sophie's eyes blazed. We can stop them, Dad. I nodded. But we play smart. John took the evidence to the state attorney general and FBI, bypassing local corruption. Days later, smoke rose from my barn. Sophie was safe, but the blaze, set in multiple spots, was arson. The fire chief confided it was deliberate. I knew who was behind it. Cleaning my grandfather's shotgun, I hatched a plan riskier than any roundup. I met John and environmental lawyer Laura Pierce in Boise. I'm done defending, I said. Let them build, then I'll reclaim. We filed a quiet title action to dispute ownership, clouding the title to scare investors. Laura lodged complaints with the EPA, FBI, and SEC against Silver Pines' parent, Peak Ventures. I took a second mortgage, risking everything. Sophie was livid. What if we lose it all? I held her shoulders. We risk it all to save what matters. A college buddy in Portland connected me with ecotourism investors. As legal pressure mounted, Peak Ventures contractors stalled, investors bailed, and news broke of FBI arrests. A judge, bribed by Peak, was charged. The SEC froze their assets. At an HOA meeting, I watched Victoria sweat as homeowners grilled her. Edward cornered me after, snarling, "You're done, Hayes." I smiled. "We'll see." 6 weeks later, the site was a ghost town. I formed Idaho Heritage LLC, a shell company backed by my investors. I contacted Peak Ventures CEO Nathan Brooks directly. 3 days later, I sat in his Denver office. "Idaho Heritage will buy the resort project for $50 million, I said, sliding over the offer. Nathan scoffed. "We've invested more, and you'll lose it all to prosecutors." I countered, "This is your out." He had 24 hours. 19 hours later, he agreed. In his office, his hand shook, signing the deal, returning my 50 acres plus damages. He didn't know I controlled Idaho Heritage. The $50 million was backed by my mortgage and investors, but the land's value was double. I'd secured permits to shrink the resort into a small eco-lodge, preserving the landscape. "Pleasure doing business," I said, pocketing the papers. Nathan frowned. "Why not take our buyout?" I stood. "Some things aren't for sale, but I believe in justice. Poetic justice." Back home, Victoria and Edward fled as FBI probes expanded. Ellie stayed, helping me reshape the project. Homeowners, fearing property value drops, backed our eco-vision. 3 months later, Sophie and I watched workers restore the creek. "You did it, Dad," she said. Ben joined us. "What's next, boss?" $30 million in debt. I laughed. "A small lodge, cabins, a public preserve. The ranch stays." 6 months on, Hayes Haven Nature Preserve opened. A modest lodge, not a rich man's playground. Sophie delayed college to manage it, blending sustainability with ranching. Conservation easements shielded the land forever. One fall morning, Ellie and I sipped coffee on my porch, hikers dotting the preserve's trails. "Did you ever dream this?" she asked. I thought of my grandfather's grit, my father's lessons, Sophie's future. "Not quite," I said. But I knew this land was worth fighting for. The sun climbed, gilding the peaks. What began as a desperate fight to save my ranch became a masterclass in outsmarting greed. I didn't win with fury or fists, but with cunning, patience, and the audacity to turn their own ambition against them. That was the legacy I'd pass to Sophie. Not just a ranch, but the truth that justice, when crafted with care, can carve a fortune from the ashes of theft.
Hiện thì ở Thanh Bên,